Hello, everyone. This is Sinema77, horror and cult film lover. I'm back with another movie review. This was one that actually one of my viewers asked me at one point if I was ever going to maybe review some of Shannon Tweed's movies. And I told him that, yeah, I was definitely going to look into it. And I do want to review a lot of those movies. If you look back on the channel, going back a ways, I did a video where I talked about the the erotic thriller craze in the 1990s. And, there was some, after, I don't know if it was after so much, maybe it was around the same time, but it seemed like after the release of Basic Instinct, it seemed that erotic thrillers just became such a big thing. And many of them were coming out. I mean, my God, it's like I spent, a good deal of my teenage years, I'm not going to lie, watching, late night movies on Cinemax and things like that, Skinemax and everything. But two of the biggest names, if you ever go back and look into the erotic thriller craze in the 1990s, two of the biggest names you're going to notice are going to be Andrew Stevens and Shannon Tweed. Shannon Tweed, now everybody pretty much just knows Shannon Tweed as Mrs. Gene Simmons. But Shannon Tweed, she posed for Playboy. She posed for nude magazines and things. And then, she started getting into movies, B movies, and into erotic films. Andrew Stevens, surprisingly, I don't know if his career maybe it hit a slump going into the 90s or whatever, but if you ever go back and look, like back into the 70s, into the 80s, he was a pretty much, a legitimate movie actor. Um, he did movies like The Fury. He was on TV series like The Bastard. He was once married to Kate Jackson, one of Charlie's Angels. And like I said, I just don't know if his career hit a slump or whatever. But as he went into the 90s, he started making these erotic films, erotic comedies, and then, into erotic, thrillers and dramas and things like that. And ultimately, he started not only just acting in these movies, but he started writing them, producing them, directing them. He created his own series of erotic thrillers, the Night Eyes series, and that resulted in 4 movies. And he worked in other films as well. And ultimately, he turned out one of his most frequent collaborators was Shannon Tweed, who right here. So anyway, and this one I believe came out in 1994. And this is a surprising movie because usually, like Shannon Tweed and Andrew Stevens, the two of them collaborated on Night Eyes 2 and 3, movies like Illicit Dreams and things. And usually it always ended up being a case where the two of them fell in love and ended up in a very sexually charged romantic relationship in a lot of these movies. This one here is a different story. In the movie, you got Shannon Tweed. Her character is Patricia, and she's married to a man named Truman. Now, this guy Truman, I mean, he's very much, he's wanting to be one of these big players in this firm, and he wants to be the guy who gets the big accounts and makes all the big money, and live this very lavish lifestyle. And but his wife Patricia, played by Shannon Tweed, she's very much a simple woman with simple tastes. At one point he's bragging about that he went out and got this brand new sports car, and he's just so happy about it. And she's talking about, I don't want, she's like, what I want is I want you, I want us to have a family. She's like, I'm not sitting here wanting a mortgage, I'm not sitting here wanting car payments and things like that. But Truman is, he's persistent. He's a go-getter, you got to give him that. And he's, bound and determined he's going to win this big deal. And as a matter of fact, he even talks about he needs her to cook dinner for this big client that he's going to bring over to their house. And, I'm going to bring him here. And, we're going to wine and dine this guy and everything else. And then ultimately we're going to, I'm going to sign the deal, and, I'm going to become multimillionaire. I'm going to make partner, and I'm going to give you this wonderful lifestyle that you deserve. And so reluctantly, she agrees to it, but even though that's not really what she wants, but here's the problem. See, Truman, he goes to the office and he realizes that there's this new guy named Alex Weston who's played by Andrew Stevens. And Alex is kind of like this real big shot. He's, been doing this for years, and you know, um, he's good at getting the big deals, and he's good at, you know, wrangling, getting in the big fish and all that, as they say. And so now he's becoming this kind of scary competition to Truman. So Truman, meanwhile, Truman, he brings this guy home, and he realized they're both drunk. And so, Patricia, she's upset because, dinner had been ready for a long time. And, she's dressed up. She looks beautiful and gorgeous. And, Shannon Tweed, always does. Um, but so they have dinner. And so, Truman and this client, they're in the living room. They're, snorting cocaine and drinking wine. And he, it's like Patricia, she's trying to clean up the dishes. And Truman tells her, no, go in there and entertain our guest and all this kind of stuff. And so she doesn't want to, but she goes and sits, and tries to make small talk with him. And he starts putting his hands all over her, and she's not having it. And she goes into the kitchen, and Truman goes in there. It's like, what's the matter? And all this. And so she tells him, this guy's hands were all over me. Get him the fuck out of our house. And he said, baby, I can't get rid of this guy and all this stuff. Just play along. And basically Truman talks Patricia into sleeping with this guy. Not really, basically it's just let the guy basically just nail you up against the kitchen counter, and, it'll be done in like a couple of minutes, and that'll be it. And then he'll get the big sale, which Patricia, it's like she's disturbed. It's not what she wants, but ultimately she gives in, and it happens. She gets bonked up against the kitchen counter, and she's not happy about any of this. And, Truman's not particularly either. But anyway, so everything goes awry because the next day Truman goes into his office, and then he realizes that Alex Weston basically is going to be taken over. He's going to be the one making partner, and Truman is not happy about this at all. And they basically tell Truman, sorry, you're just not going to work out. We got to have this guy, Alex, he's going to be the one who's, going to be getting the big deals, and he's going to be the partner in the company. He's going to have his name on the sign. So anyway, so yeah, then we come to find out though too that not only does we're going to find out though too that not only does Truman and Patricia have a messed up life, we're going to find out that Alex and his wife Marina and their son Roby, they have a pretty messed up life too. We find out that Alex, he's this big go-getter, but he's one of these kind of guys. He spends all his time working. He's hardly ever at home. And his wife, Marina, she's basically, she's like a designer, although it seems like she spends more time, drinking a lot of booze, taking a lot of pills, and basically just kind of sleeping her life away. And then they got their son, Roby, who Alex is very much, wanting his son to get into this big, fancy school, but Roby seems like he's more interested in just kind of slacking off and hanging around and not putting a lot of effort into it. He's trying to chase girls, but it seems like, girls at his school are not interested in him. At one point it's his birthday, and they have their housekeeper, this Hispanic lady named Belle. Belle is kind of like the only one who really shows any really love or any kind of anything like that towards Roby. Sorry, I forgot the kid's name. Wow. So, but anyway, so everything is going okay and all this, but Alex ends up becoming the big shot in the company, and he beats out Truman. Truman ultimately decides he can't live with this anymore, and he ends up killing himself, which of course this destroys Patricia because all of her plans, everything she was hoping for a good future is now gone. And so, she goes to the office to talk, and come to find out there's no insurance policy that, because, Truman killed himself. What insurance policy he had, is basically now null and void because he killed himself. And she's basically got nothing, So she goes in to start collecting his items. And it turns out that she sees, Alex, and she realizes this is a guy that destroyed her husband, and she's going to get revenge. And, she prints out his information, and ultimately she, gets onto this path that she's going to destroy his life. She even takes a minute. I'm surprised she did not get nailed for this. You think, I know it's a movie and all, but you figure like she would have gotten picked up for this. She even drives to the house of the client that Truman, pretty much begged her to have sex with so that he could get this deal. Well, she ends up seeing him making a deal with Alex, and so she's pissed off. And so she goes to the guy's house, and he opens the gate, and he's all, you know, gross, and he's just a gross guy. He's like, "Hey, baby, glad to see you come back." Well, she pulls out a gun and just shoots him in broad daylight. So it's like you think like somebody could have seen that, or somebody could have um, called the cops on her or something. You think somebody would have seen something or mentioned something. But anyway, no, it doesn't happen. She gets away with it, and she goes to the school where Roby goes to, and she ends up, getting information, and ultimately she sets herself up that she finds out that Roby is not doing good at school, but their parents want him to get into this, big fancy school, and so she ends up basically disguising herself as this woman who can tutor their son. And so the thing is Alex is so dead set on his son going to this school that he agrees to it and tells it, yeah, go ahead, go ahead and tutor my son and everything else. And then what she ends up doing is it basically turns into kind of a poison ivy scenario. She starts worming her way into this family. She starts manipulating everybody. She manipulates the son in particular, which I'm kind of surprised by that. I'll get to that in just a minute. She ends up manipulating the son into having a sexual relationship with her. It's very, very steamy, very tawdry. And he couldn't be happier about it. He's got this beautiful blonde MILF that he can go after, and even at one point it's like it's not all bad, because even at one point in the story, he comes home and she's all like, let me see your report card, and she finds out that he failed French, and so basically she starts she pulls down his pants, and she's like, I know you could speak French. Oh, it's hard, and I can't get into it and all this stuff. And so she starts spanking him. So, yeah, I'm sure a lot of teenage boys would have loved to have been spanked by, Shannon Tweed. Probably some of them still do. But anyway, so, yeah, so she continues on her, her erotic affair with the son, but it doesn't just end there. So we come to find out that now we got Patricia. She's going by the name Amanda now, and she's working her way through the family. She ends up seducing everybody in the family. She ends up seducing Marina, and there is this actual kind of very titillating girl on girl scene. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, there is that scene in there. She does seduce Alex, but like I said, it's kind of surprising because, like I said, if you see all these movies that Shannon Tweed and Andrew Stevens worked on together, usually they always played love interest to each other. And the one scene is she goes in, and he's playing pool, and he's upset and everything, and basically she bends over and he just takes her at the pool table, but that's about it. We come to find out the two of them are really like they end up being at odds with each other. Um, and then, of course, Roby sees her having sex with Alex, and he's upset about this, understandably. And but she's able to spin it on him because Roby is basically so, he's so happy that he's got this, hot woman that he can have sex with, and she tells him that, in so many words, that Alex kind of forced himself on her, and Roby believes it. But in the meanwhile, you got, the housekeeper Belle, who is getting she's starting to get in the way. You always got those kind of characters in these kind of films. You always got that one character who's like a butler, a housekeeper, a gardener, somebody who, kind of latches on to the fact that this person who comes into the house is stirring up trouble, and, maybe they shouldn't be there. And then they kind of start to hint that maybe they shouldn't, be in the situation anymore, which ultimately results in them getting killed because, the manipulator, this case here, needs them out of the way so they can continue with whatever it is they're trying to do. And so she sets it up to where it's an accident that Belle falls down the stairs, and she sets up that, she unscrews the light bulb and puts a trip wire. So she, trips on the stairs and falls down and pretty much breaks her neck. And so everybody's upset. And then Marina, she starts to evolve a little bit into this strong woman, because, like I said, in the beginning, she's basically just this kind of socialite wife who spends all of her time, boozed up and pilled up and sleeping all the time, not really accomplishing anything, not really knowing what's going on in her family. And so she starts to emerge like, I need to get my act together. And, but the thing is, it's like the entire time, Patricia has been constantly drugging Marina, giving her like, wine to drink, giving her tea to drink, all this other kind of stuff. And then, you know, and she's finally starting to clue into the fact that, she's being stalked and that things are going really bad. And little bit by little bit, even Alex is starting to realize this because he remembers that at one point earlier in the movie, he sees Truman driving this red sports car, which is right here that she's standing by. And there's a license plate on there that says too little, too late. And he notices when he's getting ready to go to work, he notices her car and he notices the license plate, which, don't know why she didn't think of that. But so anyway, so she, he starts to realize like, wait a minute, there's something else here. And then he goes and we find out that Patricia never took Truman's stuff out of the office. So he starts looking and he's able to determine that, that Patricia is Truman's husband and that, he finally, but the thing is that's not before Marina, has a scene where she's being stalked by Patricia and the lights go out and Alex comes home and she's armed herself with a knife. She turns around, she cuts his hand and he's like, stop acting crazy. Then now we're getting into the climax where Patricia takes Marina, ties her to the bed and she drugs her yet again. And, she's fighting and, Patricia keeps telling her, don't struggle. You keep struggling. You're just going to make it worse. And, just let the pills do their work and you'll slip off. But she's trying to fight. She's trying to keep from dying and things. And, it's getting very suspenseful. It's getting very edgy. I think I forgot to mention though, that Roby did have a fight with Alex though. This is a little earlier. So Roby's not in the picture. He goes off to this fancy school. He gets in and turns out, he and his dad there, they almost get into a fight, like I said, and the two of them can't stand each other. So he leaves and he hopes he never even sees his dad ever again. So, but anyway, so now we're getting to the climax of the movie and, he comes home. And that's one thing I have to say, I admit is kind of like, I'm kind of disappointed that this movie is a little bit on the anticlimactic side because Patricia is about ready to slice Marina's wrist and Alex comes in and, and she says, you're a pathetic man. And, he's all like, I know who you are. I know you're Truman's wife and all this stuff. And, she's all like, and he's all like, I love my wife very much. He says, oh, you love your wife so much. That's why you fuck me. And, she's all like, you're pathetic. Your son is a better lover than you are. Fuck, even your wife is a better lover than you are. And then he punches her. She goes out a window, falls 2 stories. And then, so he goes and unties his wife and, they call the cops. Cops come along and, it turns out she disappeared. They don't know where she is. Everything seems like it's okay. You're coming to the end of the movie. And then, Marina and Alex, she gets a scare because he made her some tea. And that's the thing, Patricia was always making her all this tea to drink that she was drugging. And so she thought that, Patricia got into the house somehow. It's like, no. And Alex comes in, the two of them are hugging and, they call their son. Well, they get a call from their son and they talk to him and, she's all like, don't you want to talk to your dad? Of course, the son's like, no, I don't want to talk to him. So anyway, then they hang up the phone and he's, at his school and he's all like, turns around, it's like mom and dad send their love and then realize Patricia's in bed with him and they start to get ready for a night of passion. And that's where the movie ends. Now, like I said, that was kind of the thing I thought was interesting about this movie because I really expected this to be more of a story where, Steven's character and Shannon Tweed's character would fall in love because usually that was always the formula. So I thought this was an interesting change of pace that in this one, Shannon Tweed is basically doing kind of a little bit of like a fatal attraction, kind of a poison ivy thing. And the two of them, even though they do have a sex scene, it's like if you go and watch like Night Eyes 2 and 3, they have much more like explicit sex scenes and everything else. So it's kind of weird to see the two of them playing enemies in this movie. Um, Overall, the film was very well made. This is one of the movies I think it could have benefited though from a DVD release. The way I watched this, you could see it for free on YouTube. Um, but yeah, you could tell this was like a rip from an old VHS. And I think this movie, it is beautifully shot. The cinematography looks great. Shannon Tweed looks beautiful. The sex scenes are very sexy. The way they're filmed and the way they're lit. You got decent acting. Ultimately, it's not a bad little film. It's not going to win awards, but I would definitely recommend it. And if you were looking to get into Shannon Tweed movies, if you were looking to see what she was like back in her heyday of the '90s, and her doing her nudie films and everything else, it goes by A Woman Scorned, but then it's also known as Scorned. So I, just look for it on that, or just the way I found it on YouTube was just type in Shannon Tweed, and that's how I found it. But anyway, yeah, I definitely recommend this movie, and Shannon Tweed looks great in it. There's a decent amount of nudity. There's good softcore sex if that's what you're into, and ultimately that's it. And hopefully I'll be able to try to find more Shannon Tweed movies, and I kind of want to do that. I want to try to see if I could look into more of those '90s erotic thrillers and see if I could start reviewing some of those. So but anyway, that's going to do it. So if anybody took the time to watch this, I thank you for doing it. I appreciate you for doing it. I also hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe. And I'll see you later. Everybody take care. Have a good night. Bye-bye.